Welcome to a Passover Seder sponsored by Baptist Women in Ministry of North Carolina. I'm Kathy Chapel, Executive Director for BWIM, and I'm here today with my friend and co-host, Katie Gamble.
Hi, my name is Katie Gamble, and I'm a first responder with Forsyth County EMS. I also go to church at First Baptist on 5th Street in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
And something Katie did not tell you is that her first year out of high school, she spent in Uganda. She was a missionary doing service work in Africa. The Seder is the most commonly celebrated Jewish ritual in the world and is normally performed by a community or family. Traditionally, families and friends gather in the evening of Passover to retell the story of the Exodus from Egypt and to offer special blessings, observe rituals, and sing Passover songs. One of the most important rituals of the Seder is that the youngest person present asks questions of the oldest person present. Today, that's me and you, Katie. Will you read Exodus 13, verse 8 for us?
You shall tell your children on that day, saying, "It is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt." Exodus 13:8.
And what God did was set the Israelites free from slavery. Through rituals and food, the Seder helps people remember slavery and cherish their freedom from slavery. Most importantly, the Passover Seder is a way to pass on the Jewish faith from grandparents to children and from one generation to the next.
Today, Kathy and I have displayed a sampling of foods that will be part of the BWIM North Carolina Passover Seder meal. The menu items include brisket with a side of horseradish, sweet potatoes with cinnamon, romaine lettuce and purple cabbage, walnut and apple salad. Then we have Passover apple cake, macaroons, matzah bread, and boiled eggs.
In just a few minutes, we're going to prepare two of these menu items for you. One will be the brisket and the root vegetables like carrots and pearl onions that accompany the brisket, and the apple walnut salad or mixture. The brisket is the meat, the root vegetables would be food that people could take with them in a hurry, any food items out of the ground. Then the apple walnut mixture is to represent the mortar in between the bricks while the Israelites were in slave labor in Egypt. And so this is a remembrance food for them.
And don't forget, a link to these menu items will be part of this video today.
Brisket is a favorite meat choice for a traditional Passover Seder. Brisket weighs about 8 pounds and is sold cut into two pieces, the first or flat cut and the second or point cut. Select a first cut that is evenly thick with a cap of fat on one side. Do not trim the fat because it contributes to the meat's moistness. Preheat your oven to 325 degrees. Season both sides of the brisket with salt and pepper. Place a roasting pan across 2 burners on medium-high. You'll be surprised how quickly the pan heats up, and once we put the oil in that I'll tell you about in a minute, it will be ready to sear the brisket on each side. Heat 3 tablespoons of olive oil in the pan. Distribute it throughout the pan so that it's covered very well. Add the brisket to the pan. Sear until brown, about 4 or 5 minutes per side. You'll enjoy hearing the sizzle as the searing takes place. Once you've seared the brisket on each side, transfer the brisket to a serving plate and then reduce the heat on the roasting pan to medium. Once you've removed the brisket from the pan, you'll want to add tomato paste, dry red wine or fruit juice to the pan. Then you will add chicken stock. Also add bay leaves to the pan and bring your ingredients to a boil. Once the mixture begins to boil, return the brisket to the roasting pan and then cover with aluminum foil. Remember, you will have preheated your oven to 325 degrees. Place the pan with the brisket and your mixture in the preheated oven and cook 2 hours. After the 2 hours, take the pan out, flip the meat over. You're going to add your whole garlic, cover again, and bake for 30 minutes. After the 30 minutes, add the other root vegetables that are in your recipe, like carrots and pearl onions. Cover the pan again and cook for another hour until the brisket and the root vegetables are tender. After your brisket has cooked another hour, we really want to work on the sauce and then let your brisket breathe. So let the sauce from the pan with the brisket stand for 15 minutes, enough that the fat is beginning to stand on top, and you will want to remove or skim that fat from the sauce. At the same time, the brisket will be on a cutting board, and you'll want to take a piece of aluminum foil and make a tent to let it just stand and breathe. Remember that you have your brisket still under the tent, and the sauce and vegetables that you have to this point in the roasting pan is still there. You'll want to return the roasting pan to the 2 burners on top of the stove. Turn the heat to medium-high, and then you will want to let the sauce cook down about half of the mixture that you currently have in the roasting pan. You'll wind up with about 2 cups of sauce. You will want to add a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, and that will be your last step before we begin to slice the brisket. As we slice the brisket, always remember to slice against the grain. Cut thin slices and arrange on a platter with the root vegetables surrounding the brisket. Season the brisket once again with some pepper and then drizzle the sauce on top of the meat. Serve immediately with the remaining sauce. Enjoy.
The next dish we are making is harrozé. It is a standard Eastern European dish. The recipe we are following makes approximately 4 cups of the mixture. The ingredients you will need for this recipe are 3 medium Gala or Fuji apples, peeled, cored, and diced by hand. You will need 1.5 cups of walnut halves, lightly toasted, cooled, and coarsely chopped. The next ingredient you will need is a 1/2 cup of sweet red kosher wine. The 2 final ingredients are going to be cinnamon and brown sugar. You will need 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon and 1 tablespoon of packed brown sugar. In a large bowl, you will stir together all the ingredients. You will store this dish covered at room temperature until ready to serve.
Welcome to the home of Joy and Chris and Katie Gamble. We are here observing a Passover Seder meal, and we want you to know that everything on the table is a kosher item that really symbolizes part of their faith journey from Egypt to the Promised Land. At a Seder table, you would have a Seder plate where you would put a sampling of all these foods. So the brisket and the complementary sauce with the brisket would be the horseradish, which reminds the people of the bitter herbs. And then the vegetables, all the vegetables on the table, including the salad, are root vegetables, meaning when the people left Egypt, they were in a hurry and they dug up vegetables and items that could be carried with them. The same is true of the unleavened bread, of the matzah bread, that the bread had to be baked with no yeast. It was flat and it had to be carried with the Israelites. Also, we have the mixture that we made, the walnut and apple mixture or salad. These are fruits and root vegetables mixed together that requires no refrigeration, good for the journey. We have a salad with romaine lettuce and radishes. We have our baked sweet potatoes with brown sugar and cinnamon. And we have boiled eggs. That is one reason that when we celebrate Easter in our Christian faith, that eggs are so important to us, representing new life, beginning anew. But it was also travel food for the children of Israel. We have, I think I mentioned in the beginning, our brisket and surrounded by root vegetables. For desserts, we have a Passover apple cake, and then for a second dessert, macaroons. And all of these are kosher dishes, and we are excited to share this meal together, representing Passover night, but also the Christian faith as we look to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. A second item is that we celebrate children at these events. We really want to pass on the tradition of the Passover Seder and never forget what these items mean. And Katie, you have some questions that are important for children to ask their grandparents or their parents. And you're going to ask those here, and we're going to answer them while we sit at the table before we eat. What are those questions?
Why is this night different from all the other nights?
Well, this night is different from all the other nights because it is the celebration of Passover. It is a remembrance of leaving Egypt to go to the Promised Land, journey unknown, not knowing what they would happen upon, but also knowing that they were freed from slavery. That was the big reward for them, that they were set free.
And why is it that all the other nights we eat all kinds of vegetables, but tonight we only eat root vegetables?
We eat those root vegetables because we want to be able to get to foods that we can either find on the journey or take with us on the journey. So I always picture the moms and the children gathering root vegetables and putting them in some big bags to carry with them on a wagon or on the back of like a backpack to carry with them as they went. So they are vegetables that are easy to carry and require no refrigeration.
Why is it that all of the other nights we don't dip our food even once, but tonight we dip it twice?
We dip it twice. We have bowls on our table that we fill with salty water. And what we want to do is another remembering activity, that we take our food, especially parsley, that we would take that or some of the root vegetables and dip in the water, and that's to remember the bitterness of slavery. And then we dip it a second time to remember the future, that we are on a journey moving from one place to another.
And why is it that every other night we eat either sitting upright or reclining, but tonight we only recline?
And I always imagined that it would be difficult to eat a meal while you were reclining, but that was a tradition of the people who were not slaves, of people who were free. So if you were a slave and you were in a room where people were sharing a meal, even if you got to eat some food at that opportunity as well, you would be standing up and probably back against a wall. But now, all of the Jews have been set free, and they can recline and enjoy the freedom that they're experiencing.
Okay. Cool.
I do believe we hear a knock at the door.
Could it be Elijah?
I think it's Elijah. We have a seat at the table with us that is saved for the prophet Elijah. It is tradition in the Jewish community that at the end of the Seder meal, Elijah comes to the door, or someone representing Elijah knocks on the door. Again, the youngest person goes to the door to open the door. And when that young person opens the door, they say to each other, "Next year, we will see you in Jerusalem." During this year of pandemic, we have lost hope at times. And it's important to remember, as we celebrate something like a Passover Seder meal, and we look forward to the resurrection at Easter, that we have hope for the future and know that we have the opportunity to live in the kingdom of God today and tomorrow. Amen.